The other day, I noticed one of my kids sitting quietly. He wasn't upset exactly, but something just felt off. So I did what any parent would do. I sat on the floor next to him and just asked, "Hey, are you doing okay?" "Yeah." And then I asked, "What emotion are you feeling right now?" He paused, shrugged, and just said, "I don't know." Oh, that hit me, right? I don't even know where the question came from. It just popped to my mind because honestly, how often do we really know what we're feeling? Not just fine or stressed or busy, but really, truly know. I mean, it's easy to rush through the day without checking in, right? I mean, life moves fast and we get caught up in all of the stuff that we have to do. I mean, it's life. But when we don't take the time to name what we are feeling, we miss out on understanding ourselves and maybe even what we actually need. So today, I want to pause. Let's pause together. And I want to unpack the question that I asked him. What emotion are you feeling right now? I'm Chad Lawson, and let's calm it down in 3, 2, 1. So why we avoid this question? Because it can be heavy. But here's the thing. Emotions, they can be uncomfortable. Newsflash, right? They're not always convenient or easy to pin down. I mean, sometimes they sneak in quietly like a whisper, and other times they crash in like a wave and just leaving us just reeling. And instead of pausing to ask, what's going on here? We typically just try to push through, right? I mean, we think, I don't have time for this right now. Or maybe we don't even notice that we're feeling something at all. But here's the problem with this. When we ignore our emotions, they don't disappear. They just wait. They linger under the surface until they pop up somewhere else. Oh, look at that. Maybe in frustration over something small, or in that really heavy feeling that you can't quite shake. So asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? It's not about fixing anything. It's just about noticing. And that is the first step that we want to take. Now, I've talked about this before in previous episodes, but there is a power in naming your emotions. There's definitely a power in naming your fears, but how often do we name our emotions? So I want to talk about why naming your emotions is so powerful. Psychologists actually have a name for this, and it's called affect labeling. So research shows that when we name what we are feeling, it actually reduces the intensity of those emotions. I'm going to say that again. When we name what we are feeling, it actually reduces the intensity of our emotions. It's like flipping on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, everything feels a little less overwhelming. For example, instead of saying, I feel bad, well, you might realize, I'm feeling overwhelmed because I've got too much on my plate right now. Or instead of just saying, I'm fine, maybe it's more, I'm feeling hopeful, but also a little nervous. So do you see the balance? And do you see how you're naming it and categorizing it? This is what the psychologists call affect labeling. When we name what we are feeling, it gives us clarity. And with clarity comes the ability to respond, not react to what's going on inside of us. And then sometimes we do have that, I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling, right? Like when my son said, I don't know, I realized how often we all feel that way. And it's not because we're trying to avoid the question. It's not. It's because we were never really taught how to answer it. Most of us grew up in a pretty limited emotional vocabulary, right? I mean, if you think about it, happy, sad, mad, but emotions are so much more layered than those simple words, right? There's joy, yes, but also things like pride and gratitude and contentment. I mean, sadness can mean disappointment, can mean longing, or even bittersweetness, right? The more specific we get, the more we understand what's happening inside of us. And when we understand, we can begin to move through it. So here, let's try this together. Let me show you. Wherever you are, just pause for a second. If you can, if you're in a safe space, or if it feels comfortable, just close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath through your nose and out through your nose. Now I want you to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? If you're not sure, it's okay. Think about an emotion wheel, one of those colorful charts that breaks emotions into categories, right? Like joy or anger or sadness or fear. And start really broad and then begin to get more specific. Are you angry or is it more frustration? Are you happy or is it more like, a relief or maybe some hope? And whatever comes up, I just want you to notice it. There's no judgment. There's no need to fix it. Just see it for what it is. What am I feeling right now? Because what our emotions are doing is they're trying to tell us something. Emotions are not random. They're not. They're like little messengers, right? Like anger might be telling you that a boundary has been crossed, or sadness might be pointing to something or someone that you value really deeply, that's really important to you. And even boredom, believe it or not, even boredom has a message. It's a lot of times boredom is a sign that you're craving something meaningful. But if we ignore these messengers, it's like leaving unopened mail on the counter. I'm going to say that again. If we ignore these emotional messages, it's like leaving unopened mail on the counter. It piles up until it's overwhelming. And when we begin to name our emotions, it's like opening those letters. It's the first step to understanding and responding to what we need. Okay, sure, Chad, this sounds great. Okay, but how do we do this? How do we build this emotional awareness? Well, the very first thing we have to do is we have to pause and we have to reflect. So start small, like really small. Like take 1 minute a day, just one, and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? You might be surprised by what comes up. And then if you struggle to name your emotions, I want you to use that emotion wheel or just keep a list of words close by, right? The more words you have, the easier it gets. But expand your emotional vocabulary. Go deeper than happy, sad, mad. Like find out what the root is. And then, this is really important, write it down. Sometimes putting pen to paper really helps. And this is why journaling is so important, because when you journal, you're beginning to understand what you're feeling, even if it's just a few sentences, but you're beginning to name that emotion and you're beginning to expand what the vocabulary is of that emotion when you sit down to write them out. And then afterwards, share it. Share what you're feeling with someone that you really trust. I mean, even saying out loud to yourself can really make a huge difference. It can make it feel more real and less overwhelming. Do you remember going back? Do you remember earlier the effect labeling that the psychologists use Talking it out is the same thing because we're expanding that idea of labeling something. So we can say yes in our mind, I'm sad because of this thing. But when we put those words out, we're increasing that amount of effect labeling, and we're beginning to take more control and understand and open that envelope of what that emotion is. So share it. Talk it out with someone. Here, I'm going to give you one more exercise. Are you ready? I use this analogy quite a bit, the calm lake, because it's just beautiful to begin with. But imagine yourself sitting by a really calm lake, like super still. The water is really smooth and it's reflecting the sky. Do you have it? Now I want you to imagine dropping a pebble into the water. Now watch as the ripples spread out. Each ripple represents an emotion. Some are big, others are small. And as you sit by this lake, this calm water, I want you to notice the ripples. What emotions are present for you right now? What do they feel like? What do they look like? Sit with this for a moment. You don't need to change these ripples or make them go away. Just let them be. And when the ripples settle, notice how the water becomes still again. Each ripple is an emotion. Some are big, others are small. Just notice them, and as they settle. So this week, I have a challenge for you. I want you to try something. And I'm going to do this too, so you're not alone. And don't make me feel like I'm alone, so do it with me. But 3 times a day, it's not that hard. Morning, afternoon, and evening. Just pause and ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling right now? Write it down if you can, even if it's just a word or 2, but open that vocabulary up. And at the end of the week, take a look back. Do you notice any patterns? Are there certain emotions that show up more often? And again, the goal is not to fix anything. It's just to notice. Because when we become aware, that's the first step to understanding. And then we can begin to open up this envelope a little bit more. Going back to that moment with my son that I mentioned earlier, I realized how powerful his answer was. I don't know. I don't know. 3 words that are so honest and they're so real. And it was a really good reminder for me to realize that the most important thing isn't having all the answers. It's not. But it's willing to ask the question. It's not having all the answers, but it is being able to ask the question. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for living. And until next time, I hope you will be kind to your mind and join me again as we calm it down. To find more episodes of Calm It Down, see where I may be appearing in your area, or just simply want to know where to send me some chocolate chip cookies, visit calmitdownpodcast.com. This podcast was written and produced by yours truly, Chad Lawson, composer, pianist, and nationally recognized Sweet Tooth. The views, expressions, and techniques in this episode are of my personal opinion and not intended, nor should they, serve as a substitute for medical advice or diagnosis rendered to you by your individual doctor or other healthcare provider. Only a licensed physician should evaluate your situation, provide a diagnosis, or render other medical advice to you, and you should only act upon the advice of this physician. Now, I'm an extreme empath by nature, but my profession is that of a composer and pianist, not a licensed therapist or physician. I hear from thousands of listeners how my music has helped them through various stages of emotional needs, and I simply want to offer this in future podcast episodes to aid those needs. So to find a list of licensed professionals in your area, please visit calmitdownpodcast.com. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review, or better yet, share it with a friend. While it takes less than 60 seconds to do, its impact will last for years to come, as every little bit helps in growing the awareness and the importance of mental and emotional health. Thank you for listening. Thank you for living. And until next time, be kind to your mind and join me again as we calm it down.